Man, you guys are still into this shit? This shit is fucking sick. As in, not good.
A couple weeks back, the Ubisoft CEO, when asked about the $70 price tag for
Skull and Bones,
a new pirate-themed game, not to be confused with the amazing pirate game that they made about 11 years ago, he replied back with, "You will see that Skull and Bones is a fully fledged game. It's a very big game, and we feel that people will really see how vast and complete the game is. It's a really full quadruple A game that will deliver in the long run." And everyone that's played the game and played the beta said no. And I'm kind of inclined to agree with them. The game looks great. There's nothing that looks inherently broken, but as seeing from just gameplay and videos of it, what's the difference between this and the modern AAA game? So this got me going down a rabbit hole of a bunch of titles just to figure out why try and make up a new classification. And what exactly is AAA anymore? So to follow the pitch term, and if we look at the dev cycle of what went behind Skull and Bones, and we'll just follow the rules here. Skull and Bones started production back in 2013. It's been about 11 years and probably a lot of money. So we'll assume anything over the average 5 to 6 year AAA game dev cycle will be put in this, and along with a lot more money. So we're gonna add Perfect Dark, Beyond Good and Evil 2, and Halo Infinite to this, mostly because Halo Infinite cost a lot of money, and I'm pretty sure was like 8 years in production since Halo 5, to the point where they even had to delay it for launch, but not for the quality of the product that came out, or still hasn't come out for that matter, but over the large amounts of money put into the production as a whole. It's never to say these products are good or bad upon release until you can actually play them, but if we're gonna make up new terms, might as well hold everyone up to the standard, I guess. AAA is probably the easiest one to explain. These are the most common ones you'll see. They have big marketing ads. They'll be everywhere. These games are going to have the most money behind it, the most focus, a large amount of outsourced studios or even internal outsourced studios. Like Call of Duty for the last 5-6 years had almost every studio working on it in some way, shape, or form. Also, logistically, the budget would realistically, for the sake of my sanity, let's go for under $300-400 million, which is still an absurd amount of money, but if we're gonna stay true to what is now the standard, we'll keep it the way it is. And while we're at it, let's think about the expectations of the product to allow a justification for the $60 and $70 now, I guess, dollar price tag. The average AAA game would have multiplayer, single player, and a bunch of other shit, usually MTX or microtransactions, extras, free DLC. They're always gonna try and keep you going on one product, and sometimes even not free DLC. Sorry, Destiny expansion players. And overall, the game feels gigantic and will allow the player to constantly play for a very long time. There's also a very sense of like standard quality that every gamer has to expect, as well as snappy controls, good accessibility, solid UI UX for the most part, and a safe product that if you spend this money on, you're gonna get a solid game. And because the product is so safe, there's gonna be a lot of games that don't say something too artsy, and usually when they do something slightly different, there's 500 Reddit posts and a bunch of YouTube videos with that lady crying on the thumbnail calling it woke. For example, when they introduce a non-binary character to Destiny 2, or even Pharah from Modern Warfare 2019, or making Ellie lesbian, you always gotta yell at that, I guess. These also include really in-depth single-player cinematic games, Your Last of Us, God of War, Gears of War, remember those games? Horizon, and even Death Stranding to an extent. Kinda. AA games are the style of games that are going to be coming out a lot more recently, and you're going to see a lot more of, like It Takes Two, Hi-Fi Rush, Plague Tale, Psychonauts 2, and Helldivers 2, which is so popular I can't get into the game, so I have to be productive and make this video instead. And even games like Alan Wake 2 would be considered into this category, simply for the fact that the budget is relatively a medium-sized budget, so let's go under $100 million. But are often published by bigger companies and giving them resources like marketing, like tools and whatnot as well. Allow me to elaborate a little bit more. Haze Light Games, the company that made It Takes Two and A Way Out, is funded and founded independently, but they are partnered and published by EA. Hi-Fi Rush, which was one of my favorite games, is created by Tango Gameworks, technically is published by ZeniMax, aka Bethesda, which is also now owned by Microsoft. And Alan Wake, which is owned and created by Remedy, who is still independent, was published by Epic Games. See, it's like this little hierarchy. It's like, we're going to work with you and we're going to be associated with your product, and this is a tool that you're going to get out of it. This overall kind of rule is what makes it AA, an independent company that is published by one of the bigger companies. Now, what about smaller companies? Rollerdrome, Kina, The Red Lantern, Another Grabs Treasure, Dave the Diver, and Sifu. These are fairly small companies, probably under 30 to 50 developers, I'm assuming. But they shoot for a higher level of quality and they succeed, which are often published by like these company collectives, like Kina being published by Sony, Rollerdrome, which is being published by Private Division, aka 2K, aka Take-Two Interactive, aka the lads that created Grand Theft Auto. A couple of games I mentioned before, like Another Crab's Treasure, The Red Lantern, are both independent companies. Aggro Crab and Timberline, respectively, are both published by Kepler Interactive, who has published a bunch of other amazing games like Pacific Drive, Chia, Flintlock, Scorn, and even Sifu. Hopefully, these companies would probably be considered AA or even II if you want to get really, really weird about it, just because they are still under a published company but are smaller in scope. Also, for the sake of clarity, this also does include Devolver, and I just want to give a shout out to Devolver because I love everything they do and they're always super cool all the time. Single A is one of the new categories that came up, and is weirdly niche that only 2 studios, to my knowledge, really started to push up on, and that's Ubisoft and Riot Games. I'm sure there's more, but I'm sorry. These are the games that are very small but are owned and published using the IPs of the bigger company. Like Riot Forge's games with Mage Seeker, Songa Nunu, and Convergence all use the League of Legends IP, and Snake Pass, Grow Home, and Prince of Persia are all just smaller studios within Ubisoft that pushed out smaller games for the sake of coming up with a indie aesthetic in mind. These games are relatively small, but they have a lot of people and tools backing them up, which is really cool. And it allows them to explore new ideas and even push IPs to do something drastically different that they never do or haven't done in a very long time. I'm talking positively about a League of Legends IP. Apex Legends came from a game jam. The freedom of expression that allows developers to try something new, which is often never the case because of how much of a risk it is to deviate from what made the series so successful. And usually it pays off in the end. If you try and do it with a bigger IP like Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, you're going to get a lot of negative stuff because we want same, but different. Triple I is something that I'm only going to mention 1 or maybe 2 games about because there's only a few that really push this boundary. These are independent studios that remained independent and got their funding through other ways, whether it be like venture capital, taking a loan out from a bank or whatever. But they blurred the line of what's like this triple A sense of quality, but they are still indie games with a gigantic budget. Immediately, it's Baldur's Gate 3 and Star Citizen, which took 5+ years to develop. Star Citizen still isn't done, but to anyone else that just knows anything about it, it's like, oh, this is still that game. It's still a standard. There's nothing that different from this and a Elden Ring or a Call of Duty. There's nothing different. Some people just give it the media pass of, oh, it's trash just because it has the title of indie. And I love that these studios exist because it can really blur the lines of limitation and allow these developers that have been working for AAA studios for so long and understand how it works to venture out and do something more. By the way, I love Baldur's Gate 3, but I had to stop about 60 hours in because Karlek rejected me and I haven't been the same since. Also, is whatever That's No Moon and like Lightspeed LA counted in this? Because I don't think they're owned. I think they're just partnered. I don't know. This is one of the weird finicky stuff. Not touching Double I. You can do whatever you want with that. You can throw Devolver in there. You can throw the other games I mentioned in Double A in there. Doesn't really matter. I think it's dumb.
Woo! Fuck! I don't know what you got going up here, but who did this? This is gonna be a big job. I'm gonna need to order a few parts, but first let me just go back to my truck and get a few tools. This is gonna cost you. It's gonna set you back a bit.
True indie. These, along with so many others, are the small budget, usually solo to like 10 dev teams that make a game that shouldn't take too long to complete as a gamer, but are, well, the good ones are incredible experiences throughout. Undertale, Minecraft. Insane to think about Minecraft was only developed by one dude. Super Meat Boy, Stardew Valley, Binding of Isaac, FNAF, Pizza Tower, Celeste, Lethal Company. These are all incredible, outstanding titles that, although some may blow up to the massive hype such as Minecraft, Lethal Company, and FNAF, and Among Us, a lot of them go under the radar or are just ignored because of the title of indie, it's a huge shame. Game development is getting more and more expensive with each passing year, and inflation is definitely not helping in any sense. And it looks like the $70 price tag is gonna stay around for a little bit, at least until something happens or things get stable again. Believe me, it's not great for the developer side either. It's been terrible. It sucks. But that doesn't mean you only have to go for triple or quadruple A games, because quite frankly, all this title and label bullshit doesn't matter. You can even see things like, for again, Baldur's Gate or all these AA games, like the quality doesn't diminish just because you give it a separate title or a different category. None of it really matters. It's just some marketing bullshit that was forced to give video games a sense of urgency and like relevance like they do with film. We're always kind of competing with film in that regard. But now we're at a point, at least game developers and video games as a whole, we're not just toys anymore. We're full experiences that often or not surpass movies. Game quality has never correlated to how much a game costs to make or how much you pay for it. I loved my time with Destiny 2, Halo, Call of Duty. I loved all of them, but the stories and experiences so many other games that provided me with a sense of relief, like Celeste, Disco Elysium. I know Elden Ring's AAA, but it's up there. It Takes Two, Minecraft, Super Meat Boy. The FNAF series is a huge one for me. Lethal Company's left me laughing hard for so long, and I keep going back to it. Pizza Tower has an aesthetic that can only be matched by crazy shitpost mixed with WarioWare. And Baldur's Gate 3, left half the world in shambles last year because of how much it affected them. None of these titles matter. Sure, you can always stick to the AAA pigeonhole because you bought into the marketing, and that's okay. You spend your money on what you want. But always know there's a gem for you that's like $20 to $40 cheaper that'll sit with you for the rest of your life. This also goes for the developer side of things. You don't need to work for AAA game companies to get some sort of quote-unquote respect. Often or not, you will get paid more to work for smaller companies just because we understand that these AAA companies don't pay you. Do what you need to do to survive and make the product you want. I'm not gonna say or control whatever you want to do with your money or your life, but it's just a clear sign that games are now in this perfectly blurred state to where quality doesn't necessarily need a title or a category. Just because we've made it, we're there, and now we just have to keep making good stuff. Now, can everyone get off Helldivers 2? I just want to spread some democracy and stop fucking doing this, please.